She was sent to Earth to breed, and I was the only human in the room. The night the sky changed, no one noticed at first, except one man sitting alone in a quiet monitoring room. He worked long hours watching signals that almost never changed. Most nights were slow, screens blinked softly, machines hummed like distant insects. Outside, the world slept. He was not a hero, he was simply a technician who had learned to live with silence. The facility stood far from any city, surrounded by wide empty land. The job required patience more than skill. He watched data streams and reported anything unusual. Usually nothing happened until that night. A strange pulse appeared on the screen. It was not strong, but it moved in a pattern that felt intentional. He leaned closer, adjusting his glasses. The signal did not match anything in the system database. At first, he thought it was an equipment error, but the numbers repeated again and again. Finite, then the light flickered. Outside, a soft glow spread across the sky, not bright like lightning, but calm and steady. He stepped toward the window. The air felt heavy, as if waiting for something. A streak of pale light moved silently downward beyond the hills. He grabbed his jacket without thinking and stepped outside. Cold air hit his face. The glow faded quickly, leaving only darkness and the sound of wind. Protocol said to report and wait, but curiosity pushed him forward. He took a small vehicle and drove toward where the light had fallen. The path was rough and dust rose behind him. After several minutes, he saw a shallow crater in the ground. Smoke curled upward slowly. At the center lay a figure. At first, he thought it was debris. Then the figure moved. It was a woman. She looked human, but something about her presence felt different. Her clothes were unfamiliar, smooth and silver-like, reflecting the moonlight softly. She seemed injured or weak, breathing slowly. He hesitated only for a moment before approaching. "Can you hear me?" he asked quietly, her eyes open. They were calm but filled with confusion, like someone waking from a long dream. "You are human," she said slowly. Her voice sounded soft but clear. "Yes," he replied. "Are you hurt?" She tried to sit up but struggled. He helped her gently. She looked around, studying everything as if seeing Earth for the first time. "I was sent," she said after a pause, "but something went wrong." He didn't understand, but he knew she needed help. He guided her into the vehicle carefully and drove back toward the facility. The ride felt unreal. His mind raced with questions, but he stayed quiet, sensing she was overwhelmed. Back inside, he brought her to a private medical room. The automated scanners showed no serious damage, only exhaustion and stress. Her body temperature adjusted quickly to the environment, which surprised him. She watched everything closely, absorbing details like a child learning new rules. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Lyra," she finally said. He introduced himself simply, no titles, just a person meeting another person. She repeated his name slowly, as if learning how it felt on her tongue. Hours passed while she rested. He stayed nearby, unsure if he should alert higher authorities immediately. Protocol demanded it, but something told him to wait. She did not seem dangerous. She seemed lost. When she woke again, she asked many questions about Earth, about humans, about time. He answered as best as he could. She listened carefully, sometimes smiling faintly at small details like the idea of rain or animals that lived in oceans. Finally, she spoke about why she had come. "I was sent here for a purpose," she said quietly. My people believe your world is changing. They want connection between our kinds. Her explanation was unclear, almost hesitant, as if she did not fully agree with it herself. You were chosen? He asked. Yes, but I do not fully understand their expectations. They believe my presence here is important for future life, but now I am alone. Her words carried loneliness more than duty. He felt a strange sense of responsibility growing inside him. The days that followed felt like stepping into another reality. He helped her adjust to simple human things: food, language details, gestures. She learned quickly, observing carefully. She was curious but gentle, never demanding. She asked why humans smiled when embarrassed. She asked why people sang when they were sad. She asked why humans formed bonds that lasted even when they caused pain. He found himself opening up more than he expected. One evening, she stood near the window watching the sunset. The colors here feel alive, she said softly. He nodded. They change every day. She looked at him. I was told humans fear what is different, yet you help me without hesitation. He shrugged slightly. You look like someone who needed help. That's enough. Her expression softened. Something began to grow between them, not romance, not yet, but trust. Then new information arrived from her damaged device. She studied it carefully, her face becoming serious. My mission is more complex than I believed, she said slowly. I was sent as a bridge between species, not just for science, but for creating connection between worlds. Verb. He felt uneasy. What does that mean exactly? She hesitated again. It means I must understand humanity deeply, not from distance, but through real experience. And right now, she said quietly, you are the only human here. The weight of those words settled heavily in the room. He realized their meeting was not random. Outside, the sky remained calm, unaware of how much had changed. Inside that quiet facility, he wondered what future waited for them and whether helping her would change his life forever. The days grew longer, and the quiet, secluded life at the research facility continued. With each passing moment, the bond between him and Lyra deepened. War, what started as a simple act of kindness had turned into something more complicated, something neither of them fully understood. They spent their time together talking about Earth, about her mission, about what it meant to be human. Lyra had begun to ask questions that weren't just about survival or her mission, but questions about emotions, about relationships, and about love. John had never thought much about his own life outside the quiet routine of his job. He had few friends, and the little time he spent outside the facility was often just walking through empty fields or looking up at the stars. His life was solitary but not lonely. He never needed much more than what he had. But with Lyra, things felt different. There was something in her eyes that pulled him in. Her curiosity about the world, her awe for everything she encountered, made him see things through a new lens. He began to feel like a guide, showing her the wonders of the earth he had always taken for granted. He took her to the small garden by the building. The flowers, though modest, were vibrant under the sun. She bent down to touch the petals, and her expression was one of pure fascination. She had never seen anything like it. For her, every color, every scent was a mystery waiting to be explored. In her eyes, everything was new, and that made John see the world as if for the first time. He watched as she gently cupped a bloom in her hands. How do humans create such beauty? She asked, her voice quiet and thoughtful. It's not us really, he replied. The earth does most of the work. We just care for it. She turned her eyes toward him. But you understand its value. That's important, isn't it? To appreciate what is beautiful. John paused. He never thought of it that way. The things he had always seen around him, simple things like the wind in the trees or the sound of birds in the morning, suddenly felt more significant. I guess it is, he said. They sat in silence for a while, just listening to the wind and watching the clouds drift by. It was the kind of peaceful moment John hadn't known he needed. Lyra, despite her mission, was teaching him something important. She was teaching him to look beyond the routine of life, to find the beauty in simple things. But as much as he enjoyed these moments with her, the unease he felt about her mission began to grow. Lyra had made it clear that she wasn't here just to observe, she was here for a specific purpose. Her mission was more than just about understanding humanity, it was about connecting in a way that John couldn't quite understand. It made him uneasy. He wondered if her presence was meant to change things not just for her people but for him too, and if that was true, what would that change mean? Warm. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Lyra stood by the window again, her gaze distant. She seemed lost in thought. Do you think I'll ever fully understand what it means to be human? She asked, her voice softer than usual. John thought about it for a moment. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe none of us do. Warm. We're all figuring it out as we go. She nodded, as though taking comfort in his words. She didn't say anything else, but he could see the conflict in her eyes. She was torn. The more she learned, the more she questioned, was her mission really what it seemed? And if it was, what role was she supposed to play in it? John couldn't answer those questions. But what he could do was be there for her. He could show her the things that made humanity unique, the things that made them imperfect but also capable of great kindness and beauty. He could offer her that piece of humanity even if it wasn't the entire picture. He didn't know if that was enough for her or for her mission, but it was what he could offer. As the days passed, their bond grew stronger. They shared more than just simple conversations. They shared pieces of themselves. John found himself opening up to Lyra in ways he hadn't expected. He talked about his past, his hopes, his regrets. He talked about the family he had lost, the things he had left behind when he decided to work in a place like this. He had never been good at letting people in, but with Lyra, it felt natural. There was something about her openness that made it easier to share. Warm. One evening after a quiet dinner, Lyra looked at him, her expression serious. I know why I was sent here, she said, but I don't think I fully understand it. It's not just about connecting with humans. It's about something deeper, something I don't know how to explain. John felt a pang in his chest. He knew what she was trying to say. He could feel it too, the pull, the growing tension between them. But it wasn't just about the mission. It wasn't just about her being sent here to fulfill some greater purpose. It was about them right now in this moment. Something was changing. I don't know what it means either, he said quietly. But I think it means something. Lyra met his eyes, and for a moment the world around them seemed to disappear. It was just the two of them standing on the edge of something neither could fully understand but both could feel. The arrival of the military personnel was not expected. John had been alone with Lara for days, and although he had been careful to keep their existence a secret, the world outside had a way of finding its way in. It happened one morning when John woke up to the sound of vehicles approaching. The ground shook slightly, and for a moment he thought it was just his imagination. But the sound grew louder. Tires on gravel, the hum of an engine. He quickly scanned the security monitors. and saw the approaching convoy. His heart sank. They were here, and they weren't just any people. They were military. He could tell by the trucks and uniforms. He had to act fast. Lyra, he called out, rushing to her room. She was still asleep, but the sound of his voice woke her immediately. She looked at him, confused. What's happening? She asked, her eyes wide with concern. People are coming, he said quickly. We need to hide. Stay quiet. She didn't ask questions. Base. She simply nodded and followed him as he led her into the underground storage room, a place where he had stored all equipment. It was the only place where they might stay out of sight. John's mind raced as he locked the door behind them. The sound of the military convoy grew closer, and soon the facility was surrounded by armed soldiers. John had no idea what their intention was, but he had a sinking feeling it wasn't just a friendly visit. He turned to Lyra, who was standing quietly looking at him with wide eyes. They are looking for you, he said, his voice tight. We have to stay hidden. Lyra nodded, but didn't speak. Her usual calm had shifted. John could see it now, the fear in her eyes, the uncertainty. This was the moment they had both been dreading. The world was closing in around them. Warm. Suddenly, the sound of a door being forced open echoed through the facility. John's heart thudded in his chest. He had no choice but to confront what was coming, but for now he had to protect Lyra. He didn't know if he could protect both of them, but he would try. Don't worry, he whispered to her. I won't let them take you. The sound of boots on concrete echoed through the hallway outside the storage room. John stood frozen, listening to the distant voices of the military personnel, their words muffled but still filled with urgency. He could hear them calling out orders, searching for something or someone. His pulse quickened. He glanced at Lyra, who was sitting quietly in the corner, her eyes wide but calm. She knew what was at stake, but there was no panic in her expression. She trusted him. She had to. John's thoughts raced as he thought about their options. He had no way of knowing how long it would take for the soldiers to find them, not without a fight. The peaceful life they had started to build here was in danger. Everything had changed when the military arrived. He was no longer just a technician. He was a protector, a man who had to make the impossible choice between keeping Lyra safe and keeping himself out of harm's way. Lyra, stay here, he whispered, his voice low. Don't move. She nodded without a word, her eyes full of understanding. He wished he could tell her everything that was running through his mind, but there was no time for words now. He had to act quickly. He stepped cautiously out of the storage room, making sure the hallway was clear before advancing. The military personnel were searching the upper levels, unaware of the hidden room below. John knew he had to distract them, give Lyra time to stay hidden. His heart pounded in his chest as he crept toward the staircase, his mind focused on a plan that wasn't fully formed. All he knew was that he needed to buy time for both of them. He reached the control room, his fingers trembling as he slid the door open. The dim light of the monitors cast shadows on the walls. He had to make a decision quickly. With one hand, he reached for the emergency alarm system. He knew it would cause a distraction, but it also meant that the soldiers would know they weren't alone. It was a risk, but it was the only choice he had. John pressed the button. The piercing sound of the alarm blared through the facility, loud enough to send anyone running. Within seconds, footsteps rushed toward the control room. He ducked behind a row of shelves, holding his breath as the soldiers entered, their voices filled with confusion. Check the lower levels, one of them ordered. We need to find out what's happening down there. John's heart raced, but he stayed as still as possible, hoping the alarm would draw their attention long enough to give Lyra a chance to escape. He heard the soldier moving quickly down the hall, the sound of their boots fading as they rushed to investigate the source of the noise. It was the perfect opportunity for Lyra to move, but she had to be quick. He waited for what felt like an eternity before the footsteps began to fade completely. Only then did he dare to move. He quickly slipped down the hallway, trying to make as little noise as possible. His mind was focused on one thing, getting to Lyra before anyone else did. When he reached the storage room, he found it empty. His heart sank. His first thought was that the soldier had found her, but then he saw the small window near the back of the room. It was open. She had escaped. John's breath caught in his chest. He didn't know where she had gone, but he knew she wasn't here anymore. He rushed to the window, peering outside. The sky was clear, the sun just beginning to dip below the horizon. His eyes scanned the ground, and then he saw her. Lyra was moving quickly toward the edge of the facility, her silhouette outlined by the fading light. She wasn't running away from him, she was running to something. Without hesitation, John followed. The landscape outside the facility was vast and open, stretching for miles in every direction. He had no idea what kind of danger they might face, but he wasn't about to let her go alone. She might have been sent here for a mission, but he knew now that she was more than that to him. She was a person he cared about deeply. As he ran after her, his mind raced with questions. What had she seen out there? Why had she left so suddenly? He couldn't stop thinking about the way she looked at him before she slipped away, like she had made a decision, one that didn't include him. Or was she trying to protect him? Was she planning to leave her forever? When he caught up to her, she was standing at the edge of a small hill, looking out into the distance. The wind had picked up, and her hair blew around her face, but she didn't seem to mind. She was staring at the horizon, deep in thought. "I thought you were gone," he said, his voice a mixture of relief and confusion. Lyra turned to him, her expression soft but serious. "I was," she replied quietly, "but not in the way you think." She paused for a moment before continuing. "I'm not meant to stay here, John. My mission was never about staying. It was about understanding. I thought I could be part of your world, but I see now that I can't. I have to go back." John felt a lump form in his throat. He had known this moment would come, but hearing her say it aloud made it real. He had been afraid of this, but part of him had hoped that things could stay the way they were. "I understand," he said softly, though his heart ached with the words. She shook her head. "I don't think you do. I've been sent here for a reason, and I've learned things about your world, about you, that I never imagined. But I can't stay, not when my people are waiting for me." John looked at her, the pain in his chest growing. He knew she was right. She had a purpose beyond him, beyond earth, but that didn't make it any easier to let her go. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra stepped closer to him, her eyes filled with an understanding he couldn't put into words. "I don't know what will happen next, but what I do know is that I've learned something important here about humanity, about love, about connection." She paused, as if choosing her words carefully. "I didn't expect this. I didn't expect to care, but I do. And that's something I'll carry with me." John nodded, his throat tight. He couldn't find the words to say everything he was feeling. He couldn't ask her to stay, and he couldn't tell her to go. All he could do was stand there beside her, knowing that their time together had been short but meaningful. "I'll never forget you, Lyra," he said quietly. She smiled, a soft, sad smile. "I'll never forget you either." And with that, she turned away, walking toward the horizon. John watched her go, feeling a mix of sadness and understanding. He knew she was doing what she had to do, just as he had to let her go. The He couldn't change her destiny. As Lyra disappeared into the distance, John stood there for a long time watching the sunset. The world felt different now, quieter somehow. He knew that things would never be the same, but in that moment he felt a sense of peace. He had done what he could, and for the first time in a long while he felt like he understood what it meant to truly care for someone. Lyra had come to Earth for a mission, but she had left behind something much more important, a piece of humanity that would stay with him forever.